This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only.
So it's an interesting, people have very interesting range of experiences.
So you see how many of us assume you go in there and there's someone playing the sitar and it will be peaceful and nice and lovely and people will be flowing robes.
As soon as you describe the way you sit
weird
for how many hours, I immediately began to think of it as boot camp.
Yeah,
actually it is a boot camp.
It is a boot camp. And I think the whole process, this is my way of viewing it, is that you are trying to train a very unruly mind.
Yeah.
And it can't be easy, it's like just trying to rein in or break in a wild horse or something like that.
Yeah, actually I think one of the analogies the teacher uses is that.
The elephant, right?
Because I think in India they used to capture wild elephants and train them for domestic purposes.
Yeah.
So it tells the mind is very powerful, but untrained it becomes powerful and destructive. If you train it, it becomes now a useful tool which you can do a lot of good for yourself and for others, which is another thing about Vipassana and the entire philosophy which really attracted me. It's not just about you. Part of your happiness is contributing to other people's happiness and well-being as well, which you feel like, this is over and above going through the hardship. You feel that if this can make me be a better person out there, then it is worthwhile.
I feel like did you guys tell us the third part? I feel like you described the first two parts.
So the first part, the morality or sila,
right?
The
second
precepts,
part, the breathing.
Then now the second bit, the samadhi. Samadhi is like sama means harmonious, skillful, well-trained. The means intellect. So samadhi is a mind that is well-trained, or harmonized mind. So now it focuses on
the breath.
And once it's become sensitive, now you enter Vipassana. Vipassana, translated to English, means seeing things as they really are. So now, when you enter the sphere of Vipassana, once your mind has become sensitive, now you get into a different stage of the meditation where now you start scanning your body from the top of the head down to the tips of the toes and back. So now for the rest of the days, that is the meditation.
10 days. 7 days.
7 days.
6 actually.
6 days. So just scanning the body. And the directive is simple. Whatever you experience, be equanimous with it. Don't react.
So in a way, the scanning is like as your focus moves from the head, you will be feeling sensations, right?
Yeah.
So in some place you might feel it's a nice warm sensation. In another place it's pain.
Especially the knees.
The knees and the feet, depending on how
sometimes
you're sitting, your bum.
It all sounds awful.
And actually one thing I learned, if I may, is, and this is also now later on a testimony from a fellow meditator, is that he realized it's not really the body, it's all the mind. So this guy, for his second course, decided to come with muscle relaxant. So that I'm gonna crack this.
This is easy, man. We have figured this out.
I was already, in my mind, I was like, those 10 days before I go,
Yes.
I'd be like using lots of lotion, so I'm not itchy. I don't want to be itchy. If I was itchy, that's all I would think about is like,
And actually his testimony confirmed that it is 100% the mind. And later on, of course, as my practice grew, I realized when the concentration shakes, that's when I start. Okay, now if I can track back again. So one of the things you get to learn is, let's say, something we call pain. Pain has two aspects to it. There is the bare physical experience, and then now there's the mental reaction to the pain. And what I came to learn is that the reaction to the bare experience is what we suffer. We suffer. But the bare experience itself, because you reach a point where for a brief moment you are able to observe whether it is painful or pleasant, You're able to observe it without reaction. For brief moments, you're able to do that.
Yeah.
And the teacher says, you're actually retraining the mind, as Charles has said. You are retraining the mind, and here is where, excuse me, actually studies have been done. And I don't know if you're familiar with the term neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Basically rewiring your neurons. Meditation is doing that, and they have done studies that have verified that, and there are papers out there. So basically, and I remember now tracking back to some interactions with the monk at the temple, because they learn some psychology and psychiatry as well. Emotional states and mental patterns can actually become hardwired as neural pathways. And so sometimes when they're administering service to somebody who's in distress, they need to know at what state somebody is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which also is another part of Vipassana, where when you're applying, they ask you about your mental health history, so that they can know the likelihood of how things, upheavals or
crisis.
Yes, and how to handle that situation. And I think cases of certain degrees of mental disorders are not accepted because
You're
as
going
you've
to
heard,
be confronting them so hard.
because the issues that you'll face are very intense, and people who have lost certain levels of stability
Yeah.
will likely flip.
Sure.
Yeah. So Vipassana is basically scanning the body, and one thing you also learn while you're doing that is that different emotions and mental states actually manifest at different parts of the body. And I remember noticing now, of course, with experience.
I'm guessing the knees is anger.
Actually, the knees, it's more of conceit.
Conceit?
And anger. They go there. And then issues of the other gender, I'm sure you can guess the pelvic region. I remember sometimes
spell it out, why don't you?
I'll be scanning the body nicely. The mind is on a neutral object. The moment I go below the belt, it has
procreation.
Yeah, it's like
I have a
like
question
wow,
for you.
yes.
Did you have a sense of humor? Then
Yes.
when you're sitting, would you laugh at yourself sometimes?
Well, during the first course, no. I'll confess. So
Oh, you did this again?
yeah, actually,
These guys.
these guys.
Like, why?
Why would I put myself through this?
Yeah, well, so far we haven't gotten to any of the benefits. So maybe we move on to that part of the podcast. Why are you guys doing this?
Yeah. So actually, that's an interesting question. The number of times during that first course telling myself, I'm going home, but I could actually see that it's working.
How many guys went home?
During the first course, I think about 3.
Yeah, 3 out of...
About 45.
Really, yeah.
And I remember asking myself, why am I doing this? But then you can see the benefits.
You can?
You can.
Like in
see
the middle of it?
In the middle of it. And I remember earlier I mentioned my experience in primary school with the teacher and not getting a certain level of support back home. It actually came up, and it played out how that single incident made me not trust. It ruined my ability to trust. Because I remember as a child, I concluded that you cannot trust anyone, not even your own parents, because I felt betrayed at that. As a child, I felt that, oh, you guys are supposed to protect me, but so I can't trust you as well. So, and that manifested in relationships as well. So it played out during that course, and I got the opportunity to be able to sit with those feelings and basically just forgive the entire situation.
So you were able to resolve that
in
a 10-day course, your first course.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
So seeing that benefit made the pain worthwhile.
So that's one benefit. Let me ask you this, guys, because you go again and again. I knowing nothing about this, immediately categorize this as something like big time motivational weekend, or sort of childhood camp experience, or some sort of retreat where everyone is gung ho. about anything, whether it's personal finance and money, a marketing weekend or a get-rich-quick sort of thing, or just where you're hyping, and then which is often extremely positive and creates all kinds of new revelations and can create a real sense of direction, but tends to wear off. Do you feel the same thing, where you sort of like, okay, what my lessons have learned, do you learn them? Or do they seem to work well for like half a year, and then it's like, all right, I need to go back. How do you?
So it's a bit of both. So of course, at the end of the 10 days, you are told these 10 days was just to give an introduction to the technique, to get you grounded in the technique. But now going home, you're meant to integrate it into your life. And a big part of the practice, of course, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. And then if you're in an area where there are fellow meditators, if you can link up once a weekend, that will help boost the practice. But now, like for instance, in my case, after that first 10-day course, yes, there was all that pain, all that, this and that. Yeah. But I remember feeling high, a kind of high that is very sublime and good, if I can put it that way.
Sure.
And I remember thinking, I'm never touching alcohol again because I don't want this to go away. So from that point, actually, that's when I quit drinking alcohol. So went back home.
Like for good?
Yeah. After that, never went back.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, that's huge.
So that is one outcome. But now one challenge, which of course many people who attend the course will attest to, is keeping up the practice in your daily routine.
Yeah, I mean, committing to an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening seems absolutely untenable.
Yes. So my personal experience is it took time. It was gradual. So of course, after a week or so, I dropped the practice, went back to some usual lifestyle patterns.
Right.
At that time, I was a bit of a pothead. So that
for the benefit of the people who have no idea,
pot is
oh my goodness!
for the crew.
For the crew. So what is the day today?
What are the odds the crew doesn't know what that is?
Well, when I look at the crew, I think
this guy is good.
Yeah. I'm sure last
In
Saturday,
fact, we should be taking a break right about now.
Actually,
So the
last
crew-
Saturday was the 20th of April, which internationally is a day of...
People celebrate.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you're able to resolve a childhood not trusting anyone and alcohol in one 10-day thing, and that's been sustained,
Yeah.
then I guess my question is answered. That there is some sustaining from that. But you feel at what point do you go, you know what, I need to go back?
Yeah.
When does that happen for you guys?
Before
Yes.
you speak to that, and before we even address that, I just wanted to add something which is interesting.
Yes.
So many of us, of the people who go for these courses, they go with the same mindset of having a very specific outcome from it, and usually it's something very practical. Like you maybe you're feeling a certain type of way, you want that by the end of it, it's gone, or it's very, very practical. But when you go there, first of all, what is laid before you, and even the outcomes are nothing like you had thought
expected.
of.
Yes.
You understand, like the whole teaching around Dharma, and then the whole journey. It's like you went there asking for, give me a cup of tea, and somebody lays out a whole feast in front of you,
Flavored, all flavors of tea.
All flavor, and it's something like that, isn't it? And now the challenge for many of us is that we are confused as to whether whatever we sought, because some of us hang on to like wanting that specific outcome, but then you're told that this outcome may come by or it's probably not even an important outcome. It's completely upends your view of everything, including your sense of identity, how you fit into the world and everything. So typically at the end of this first 10-day course, some people step out of there with a bit of confusion. Even, who am I? What was that? And it has not solved often doesn't solve many of your problems in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4. I have figured this thing out because you've just been put on a path.
Yes.
And you're supposed to keep walking this path, and then a lot of these things will just come to you by the by.
Yes.
So I think that is just
So if I can just contribute further to that, as I mentioned earlier, anger was a big thing in me, very, very big. Had a very short temper. So as you progress, you realize the patterns of your mind that you carry. So from that course, of course, that childhood issue, that was just one of the things amongst a myriad of whole issues. So from anger to being a very lustful fellow and liberal with my lustful tendencies.
Yes.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Yes.
Forgive me, Father, for I'm about to sin.
So actually, one thing you realize during the courses is the pattern of your mind. That's what it helps you realize. And as you realize the patterns of your mind, you slowly start getting out of those patterns. So like, during the first course, of course, a lot of angry thoughts. Actually, I remember was it the 4th or the 5th day, I started hating the voice of going.
The voice of what?
No, the principal teacher when he was giving instructions.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've taken a break, your knees are still on fire, your back is on fire. You come back and this dude, start again. Dude, I'm dying. You're telling me to start again.
Yeah.
But by the end of the first day course, it was a lovely relationship because I was like, oh, if this guy can make me go through this and resolve all this, he's the guy.
Start again.
Actually, that start again, yeah, because there's a part of the instructions where you've come from your break, you've just sat down, he's done some chanting to motivate you, and then he tells you, start again.
Yeah.
Start again.
You know, your
from the top of your head to the
are
tips of
still
your
on fire.
Yes.
You are.
I can imagine
so
it would
much
be
incredible
days of
pain.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you do get those flashes of anger, and sometimes it can be very intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's a rebelliousness, I think. You know, that,
really, actually, one thing I learned later is that anger is a fight-flight reaction, which I'd never thought about. Because what is anger? It's lashing out.
You're
it's
lashing
fighting.
out when you fight. Oh,
yeah. So
because now you can't flee.
Yes. You're in a state of distress. So you can't flee. It's actually one of the ways the mind flees is that pretty girl and all the wonderful pictures that you generate in your mind to generate pleasant feelings on the body. Because sometimes you'll find either it's the pretty girl
or some memory from the past.
Okay, for myself, my mind, what I realized, it's
fantasy.
It's more fantasy. It doesn't dwell in the past so much. It creates pleasant scenarios and situations where one self-image will be propagated in a way which I feel
puffed up.
Yes, and then of course we call it the root chakra. That reproductive energy. It's so strong. So those two tendencies of my mind were those puffing up the self-image, reproductive energy. Then on this flip side, it's anger and indignation. So through several courses, I've been able to pick up those like poles and being able to see how they subside.
Right.
And I remember when I observed the major breakthrough was in 2019. 2019, I was doing now the third course. By that time, I had improved my daily practice from maybe 30 minutes in the morning. I remember one of the things I resolved within myself to keep up the practice is that every day I'll wake up, and I'm a morning person. So let me purpose to do it. So slowly went from 20 minutes, sometimes even 5 minutes. I give up to 30, 40. Eventually, it reached a point where morning, if I'd not been misbehaving the previous evening, every morning I was able to
do
sit
at
and
least an
meditate.
hour, yeah?
Yes. And that you find it gives you a certain capacity. I liken it to like the gym. You go to 1 10-day course, it's like your first week of the gym.
Yeah.
You can't come out and say, oh, I should have muscles, I should have a six-pack.
Well, I mean, but it sounded like you did. It sounded like you had some actual breakthroughs.
Actually, that was it was like a drop in the ocean. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you realize that this issue, it is related to so many other deeper issues. Yeah. So, and they all have to come out.
So how often do you guys do this?
The recommendation is once a year. If you can go for a 10-day course.
Yeah, Charles, you do it once a year?
No, so far, I started mine 2015, but I've done 5 10-day courses.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so
mine would probably be an average of once every 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be happy
By
to.
10 days.
But the
all your vacation time.
critical thing is not the 10 days. The critical thing is the daily.
Is a daily.
The daily practice.
Okay.
So you can keep going for 10-day courses, but you're not doing the daily practice. There'll be
Those gaps. It's like you're going to square zero, so to speak. Not square
really
zero,
but you won't get the cumulative effect, the cumulative benefit.
So what's the theory behind why making it so difficult? I mean, is that because not all meditations are like this, right?
Yeah. Yes. So that's a good question.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I'm trying to get sold on this,
Yeah.
and so far,
So the difference between Vipassana meditation and other techniques of meditation, which some of which I'd tried, like chanting, I'd done quite a bit of chanting, the visualizations, is that these other techniques, you are creating, let's say you have this substratum, your core substratum. It has shaped in a certain way. And these ways that as it manifests, you try to cover it up, let's say, with another chant. Let's say a chant is a vibration.
okay.
Being a scientist,
Sure.
I'm able to think
Seeing
in
the
terms
waves
of...
in my mind.
Yes, exactly. So there's this vibration. So rather than letting this vibration play out and its energy to end, you are overlaying another vibration on top of it. So on the surface, many other techniques appear to work. You get to very blissful states very quickly. But the root where everything lies, it's still the same.
It remains unaddressed.
Yes. So when this other vibration wears out, this thing will come up.
Okay.
So why the teacher and the technique, the science behind it, they say, rather than do all that and still have to deal with this, let's go to the root of things.
Why don't you do the surgery?
Yeah. So
Interesting.
Actually, what happens is, for me, the first 2 courses were very tough. After that, it's mellowed out. I can say once the anger, the indignation went down, I noticed even the pain. I remember during the 2019 course, my knees used to be stiff. And then on a certain day, I just felt my entire body just relaxed, like it let go.
Really?
Yes.
Well, after which session?
It's like you can't preempt. It's not...
it just happens.
It just happens. It's like... how do I put it? Jenga?
Yes.
It's kind of like Jenga. You don't know which particular thing you'll pull out that will crumble the entire... Yeah, so you just keep pulling.
And then each person, adding to that, each of us, apparently, because of our own peculiar histories and conditioning, we've accumulated different, energies.
Patterns, yes.
Yeah, so if somebody, for instance, has had a very tough time and has gone through a lot, maybe picked an incredible trauma, then it might, I'm not sure, it might take them longer, depending also on how well they understand and implement sort of the technique to get to that point where suddenly, or other people, it might take them a very short time if they're very focused and they're doing the right things and they figure this thing out properly. So again, you're really, really encouraged not to look to what the other person is doing or feeling, and just focus on your own path
Journey,
and your
Actually,
own.
part of the rationale for not talking for 10 days is to avoid that comparison. What's happening for you? So I might find that for you today, you had a very blissful day. Things are wonderful. You are cloud 9. And then I was being pounded and pounded.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel dejected, like, oh, I'm not meditating well. And that will impact my application of the technique. But if it's just me with my journey, with time I'll come to realize, oh, the pain comes and it goes. And I stop reacting to the pain. It will reach a point where when the pain comes, because I've trained my mind to an extent where it knows it no longer needs to react, the pain will stay for a moment and just melt away.
So is that a metaphor for the overall lesson of like when you're traveling through life and something comes at you, you're able to just be like,
actually,
observe it, move on.
Actually, at the end of the 10 days, one of the stories the Goenka gives about the ring with an inscription inside that these two will change.
Yes.
That is essentially it. And actually, the central, theory that the meditation is based on is that every phenomena in existence has 3 characteristics.
Okay.
The first one being impermanence, which in their language they call anicca. And during the course, the teacher mentions that word so many times.
Okay.
Anicca, meaning impermanence. So whether it is a good feeling, a bad feeling, it's heavy, light, it is impermanent.
Okay.
So similarly in life, whatever situation comes,
Yeah, got it.
once you've gotten to a point where you have trained, not at an intellectual level, now this is where now again the theory about how the mind is structured becomes important. It says, at an intellectual level, everyone knows that I shouldn't react. Yet, what happens?
Yeah.
So now they teach you how what we call the subconscious mind has now these latent patterns where, and I remember now going back to my family situations and life, there was a day I was in a bus going home. So the bus passed by GM. There's this huge poster with a tractor and farmland. And by this time, I've developed some, because you continue practicing mindfulness throughout your day, where you know what is going on in your body, what kind of thoughts you're having. So I remember poster passed and feeling tension in the body because the technique now brings you close to what is happening in the body.
Okay.
And I remember previously, before I started now the proper meditation, of course you're told about mindfulness and all that. And I remember there was this time I used to, now going from Syokimau to town, I'd use the train because of all that traffic and what. And I remember this day, I'm sat in the train, it has stopped at Imara Daima. A lovely lady has passed by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those feelings that somebody gets when the mind has done its thing with a lady. Yeah. And I was like, But I questioned myself, like, why did it take so long for me to catch the mind? At that point, it's because I was not in tune with what is going in the body. So now in this situation where I'm in the matatu or the bus passed by the billboard, instantly I felt that tension. And I saw like one thought moment and the next thought moment, how the mind associated the tractor and the farm to, inheritance issues.
Wow. Which were part of your
yes. So
the succession dispute.
Yes. So there's within the family there are issues which of course you hold on to with negativity. So instantly you could see how the mind associated that with, and you're feeling bad. And I was like, wow. So this is how we generate all these negativities for ourselves. So of course, the training again is not to judge that negativity that you have caught.
Okay.
Because initially, if I catch myself angry, I will judge it and want to control the anger, which will turn it up.
I'm always angry when I'm hungry.
Yeah. So that's one of the ways that I noticed as I continued with the practice. I noticed my life starting to change, my disposition starting to change, me becoming more at ease, less angry, less anxious, more sociable, more amenable to things happening.
Did it lead to sense of self-acceptance?
So,
or maybe your sense of identity, did it crystallize and then more of self-acceptance? What happened?
Actually, one thing that happens is you realize this thing we call identity. It's also a niche.
It's also a niche, yes.
And most of what we call self, because again now as part of my journey, I delved into, it's called developmental psychology, trying to understand how my early childhood experiences shaped my self-image. And I remember we talked about one of my coping mechanisms being fantasy. And I remember 2016 actually, there was a day I was seated in my bed and I found the mind going towards fantasy and I'm trying to pull it back. And that was creating a lot of tension and suffering within me. And I was asking, why does my mind have to go into this? Why can't it just stay? And I realized now later on, there's a trigger before the mind goes into fantasy mode. There's a trigger which makes you feel uncomfortable or your sense of self-image is challenged.
Then you flee.
So the mind instantly wants to create. Because I remember I used to, by this point, I had resolved that I don't need to live in Karen, I don't need a Range Rover, yet the mind was still
hanging on to
going to these things. And I was like, why does it have to? And I noticed any time the mind will get an experience that it will relate with, maybe somewhere somebody made me feel, it will want to. So that's one of the ways I noticed it has helped me improve my entire mental space and starting to reconcile my self-image. Because a lot of the things that we constitute as self are actually a reaction to somebody, maybe the voice of your mother, your sister, you call it server. We used to call it housemaid, because principally the people who are around you who helped you shape your sense of self or gave you your early experiences. You realize their voices are always in your head. So that was very interesting for me to see how, so I don't need to be that. And then that leaves you within a weird kind of limbo. So what am I?
That's the other thing I wanted to just address here. A lot of people come from Vipassana, or the more they practice. So there's a conflict between our understanding of ourselves as conventionally, through conventional processes. And what Vipassana is saying, which is there is no real self. It's just a story you keep telling yourself, isn't it? For you to...
So if I may, you've mentioned that there is no real self, but I think that is a translation that may be changing from Pali to English. Something got lost in translation. Basically what it means, like when you say the three characteristics of all phenomena, number one being anicca, impermanent, let's say the body. If you look at it, we talked about the subatomic particles, the kalapas. They are impermanent. They arise and pass away very rapidly. What we experience is actually just the qualities, which rides well with what modern physics says, that nothing is actually really solid. Like my finger's not really touching this table. They're just forces interacting. But in my experience, I call it a tactile experience, that I'm touching a table. But at that level, there's no solid matter touching solid matter. It's just forces interacting with forces. So the body being that way, they say the body cannot be your true identity, because it's coming and going, it's not. And similarly for thoughts, because thoughts come, go. That is not what I am. So the term, they call it anatta, meaning not self, which now in many spheres has been misinterpreted as being there is no self, which is, of course, doesn't make sense. But when you're identified with the body and thoughts, and you cling to that as an identity of self,
Right.
ultimately, when change occurs, there's tension, there's resistance.
Right.
And that tension and resistance is what we experience as suffering, for which we come up with all sorts of coping mechanisms. Yeah. So, so we've talked about the two aspects of phenomena, the impermanence and the not self. Now the third aspect is what now we've talked about, the suffering, which is caused by clinging to that idea that I am this and the body. But now that is getting to higher philosophical teachings.
Yeah.
Yeah, for practical senses, it's just don't be too rigid with your self-image and trying to propagate it in the world. That's one of the things I've come to learn. And how that I've realized helps my relationships is you're able to create a space for other people to be what they need to be. And when people feel that, they feel safe, and they open up, and there's more space for harmony. Yeah.
A few questions. I know we probably need to begin winding up, but a few. So when we step out of, who steps out of the 10-day course? And then how do you find the normal world, and how do you reintegrate? Did you struggle, and over the years, has it become more and more alien, or do you find like you're still okay in it?
So if you can look at the first courses that I attended, of course, the first coming out was shock. Remember, you are still super sensitive, and the world out here is bad. So I remember actually I had taken my friend's car to drop my stuff home, and driving was a challenge. Because
any sound, just jazz.
There's so much, you feel everything is just so much. So actually I took the long way home. I didn't go through Mombasa Road. I somehow ended up Ngong Road, Southern Bypass. Because there were fewer cars. But what I've observed is with time, and even with the recent courses, I am able to reintegrate more harmoniously. And a big part of it is, there's another part of the meditation that we have not touched upon. It's called metta bhavana. Metta, translated to English, means loving kindness.
Okay.
And that aspect of the meditation is actually generating thoughts of loving kindness towards yourself initially, and then now outwards towards others. Just basically, let's say, wishing somebody safety, good health, peaceful states of mind. Of course, not big houses and wealth and things like that. But, you know, the basics of being a human, to be safe and all that. And I remember during the first course, it hit me that when you do that, when I start wishing you well, I feel good within myself.
Yeah.
And now later on with experience, if I can call it that, I remember during a certain course, after the 2022 course, I got to town. I was expecting that inundation of sensations, but I remember feeling so light and loving, and I was just walking through the streets wishing everyone to be, to be in a good place.
Okay.
Yeah. So I find that with time, that reintegration becomes easier.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you deal with people, or I don't know whether you've encountered the situations where people actually think you're involved in something weird.
In a cult. Oh yes, of course. Number one is family.
And
podcast co-hosts.
Yes, I think for my family, and there's a testimony that my brother-in-law, husband to my sister, made. Because I think he got to see me at a certain point. You know, I think I realized family have a fixed image of what you are.
Yeah.
But he saw me from 2010, how I used to be. And then he said, actually, you've become more at ease. You used to be very tense. You use the word intense. And I think also for my family, seeing that you become more compassionate and not in a flowery way. You're more considerate, you're more calm, measured. My nieces and nephews, and then a favorite uncle, apparently. Yeah. So when people start seeing those changes in who you are and how you conduct yourself, the issue of cult, neither here nor there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, it fades out.
Because your behavior is not bizarre.
Yes, you're not. And when you reintegrate harmoniously, people see that, you actually have good qualities. And when was it? A couple of months back, we had gone to the village for a burial of one of my relatives. So we are in one of the bombers, his homestead. Now the deceased. Then some huge caterpillar has entered the house. So of course, the lady there. So everyone knows that it shall not be killed. Let Amwayi deal with it. Don't kill it.
You will pick it and take it out and say,
leave
and let live.
Yeah, you end up creating this space around people where people start also, they feel that, they shouldn't do certain things, or they are reminded of the nobler qualities that they also aspire to or want to espouse. And you feel you become now a better part of society.
So from a mental health standpoint, there's a way in which if you could somehow tie in your experience with how this would be, if somebody was to consider this as a process for helping them with their mental health.
Yes.
And most of us, when we have this, I'd call it a Western conceptualization of what health and mental health is. So, where there's this nice conversation we've had, but they might be struggling to see how it, how you tie it in with what would you say? How beneficial is this?
Okay, number one, again, it depends, because there are cases of I'll give an example of a friend of mine who attended a course after a recommendation. And I think, that mindset that you said somebody goes in thinking that this is a pill that will solve everything.
Yes.
So they went for the course, and of course, I think they had a history of depression. I'm not sure if they mentioned it before or not. And I remember after the course, them asking me, does Vipassana cause depression? I was like, no. So of course, in the teachings, you're told whatever heavy patterns you have within yourself, they have to come up. And I think that's one aspect most people gloss over or overlook.
Like
that
you might get worse before it gets better.
You become more aware of what is there. You become more aware of what is there. So, and I think when you become more aware, people think that you're becoming worse.
I see.
Yeah.
That's a better way of putting it.
Because I remember even for myself, for like 2 years, where I'd have instances where I'm walking in town and I'll have to stop because the passions that have arisen just from looking at girls, I have to stop and ask myself, dude, are you serious? Like serious fires. So you're walking in the street so that is for me, that's one of the examples. Of course, the other patterns now, like depressive states, that might be harder to catch and deal with because it puts you down for many people. But if you're able to catch it and remind yourself, because actually what happens is you start becoming familiar with the patterns. So like, this again, it is a niche, it is impermanent. Let me see how long it lasts. So like for me, one of the tricks that I started playing with my mind is, movie, play your mind. I will just watch the movie. whether it is enjoyable or not enjoyable, I will watch the movie. And with time, it's like watching a movie over and over again. So you notice, there's this plot twist, there's this plot twist. So depersonalizing that movie is one of the things that Vipassana has helped me improve my mental health. Like to get out of those depressive states or anxious states. I can notice at all I'm experiencing anxiety because you feel it in the body. Okay, let me stay with it. Let me not fight it. If I'm doing other things, let me do them. But I'm just aware that right now there's a state of anxiety. And one of the more encouraging experiences was an interesting one during COVID lockdown. So some of my close friends owned an establishment here in Hurlingham, but they sold their shares. It was called Guava. So on this, I think it was a Friday or whatever day, of course there's curfew, establishments are supposed to close by a certain time. We are there, of course I'm on my soft drinks, others are doing their own thing, hanging out, and then there's a police raid on that establishment. So people scampering everywhere, trying to run and hide. So I go to a certain area and I'm there because of course no one wants to get caught and pay a heavy bribe. And I notice, of course, the heart is... I can feel all the sensations in the body. Then it reaches a point, I'm like, hiding here is not sustainable. So I just walk out, confidently, experiencing all the feelings. Head up. I walk towards a certain police officer. Yes, Jambo. He's like, pia umetoka kwa bar? You're also from the bar? I'm like, siko na out. I'm not with those people. He lets me go.
There goes the no lying rule.
You caught me on that one. Yeah.
There is also something Goenka says. I'm just countering.
What?
He says something like this. Like in India, they have this thing they say that if the path is full of thorns, wear shoes and walk.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Actually, there's a quote by the Buddha that says the Dhamma is to be used as a raft to cross the sea of suffering, not to be carried as a burden on the head. Yeah. So, of course, and they say the intention is critical.
Yeah, avoiding conflict.
Yeah, I don't want to go to jail. It's not like...
There's no point of trying to be martyrdom here. It's not called for...
Yeah, but for me, in that situation, it reminded me that anxiety is not the end of life.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
You can ride it.
You can ride it. You can be very you accept that this is what's going on.
This is what is going on. Well, actually, the biggest challenge is that we try to fight what is there. That is the tendency.
It certainly is interesting because, whenever I hear about like what you described with other kinds of meditation, a lot of it is sort of like layers on top of something else, whereas this is really confrontational. It's really like being aware of what discomfort is and what the issues are, and actually just going at them in it seems awfully intense. It seems physically painful, but the way you're describing
maybe I can rephrase. It's not really going at it. It's like staying, not pushing it away,
right,
and not personalizing it. Let it ride out. Watch the movie. If I can.
That makes sense. What I think what my intention with the phrase "going at it" was like actually committing to doing 10 days of something.
Yes.
In that sense, it seems very masculine. There's I don't
Interesting.
know.
Most courses, bulk of the attendants are ladies.
Yeah. Okay.
60, close to sometimes 70%.
We contain all parts. Right?
Yes.
We are
nice.
masculine and feminine.
Masculine and feminine. In that
sense,
of masculine and feminine. Yes, it is.
So, because I still remain a little bit skeptical of some practices, because like an anecdote is I know of a person that I've met a few times that goes to the most meditation retreats of anyone I've ever met.
Yes.
And by a long shot, like lifestyle, this is what this person does. However, this person literally starts 90% of all sentences with the word no. And I'm like,
Already closed.
it's really interesting. Even if you agree, he'll go, no, but what it is, it's like, we just agreed, but you, and he's going, and the rest of the sentence is going to be an agreement, but that's the intense amount of negativity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is any of this working?
Okay.
Like, it's a very interesting thing. But I don't know if this is the kind of meditation this person does.
So, okay. So even within Vipassana, the teacher gives warnings in terms of doing the technique properly and having the right intentions. The people who come in with the intention, because you can have very pleasant meditative experiences, and the teacher calls it playing games of sensations. You've come here looking for pleasant experiences. You've not come here to do the real work. So there are people who have that mindset, that is one. And then two, the daily practice. It's very critical. Many people, for them, it'll become a lifestyle, going for retreats. Oh yeah, I've gone for 20 retreats, I've gone for 50 retreats. But in their daily living, their daily practice, that sitting in the morning, sitting in the evening, and then throughout your day, you apply the skills that you have learned of self-observation, always understanding what is going on within yourself, not in a way to control and have a instant, immediate outcome, but to harmonize yourself through self-awareness, self-knowledge. That's how I've seen it work in my life. By getting to know your patterns, you get out of the negative patterns. You hear yourself speak, you ask yourself, why have I said that? And you see, okay, this has come from a place that is defensive. And you just put you note that. You just note that, because eventually it'll come back. That pattern will come back. But there are people who have this mindset that it becomes now another ego identity. There's this funny meme of somebody jumping off a ledge, saying that I'm done with the ego, and landing on a slab, spiritual ego. So now you become even more egotistical and more defensive and more rigid. So regardless of the technique or the meditation, the person is the key, and how they apply it. And for me, one of the examples that plays in the head is like atomic energy. It can be used to provide abundant energy for industry and people, or it can be used for bombs.
Interesting. So, okay, so it's not necessarily about this particular technique, but about the intention. Because I could see that, where people are looking for pleasure,
escape, and all that.
Whereas you two are absolutely into pain.
I'm beyond the pain now. Actually, the last course is sat in, when is it? December, January, the Satipatthana course. Previously, the pain, my other courses from 2019, 2022, the pain, because you've reduced your reaction, now the pain subsides. So it's no longer an issue of pain. Now it becomes more a matter of balancing, not getting caught into the pleasant experiences, like getting sucked into them too much. And also now what we call the grosser tendencies. So now, like for me, anger started going down and started manifesting as mild indignation. So you start observing that and working with that. So you're working with, and Goenka, I think, uses an analogy. You're moving from gross fields, grosser issues, working now with subtler issues.
Well, I do like the fact that neither of these guys have tried to recruit us. Like they just talk about it. You told me about it for years, but you've never actually said, "Hey, Darren, you should try this."
We don't broadcast.
It's not even broadcast.
There's a website.
I think is you tend to find yourself seeking it out most of the time. Okay, in my case, I suppose there was a sense of running out of conventional options for processing stuff.
Really?
And yes, it's like Mom, I think the most interesting part is that bit about intellectually comprehending something but still feeling stuck.
Cognitive dissonance.
It's like I get it, but why am I not sort of yes. So I needed a process, a way of now really turning my understanding into something I could walk with. So I suppose I was driven there by a very personal, very, something. And I suppose quite a number of people, if you speak with them, that would probably be their story as well. There are those who go there perhaps because they have been asked to by others, or they are also seeking out something. And even if they don't necessarily pursue meditation in a very committed fashion afterwards, there's usually something they pick out from there or something, and maybe even later on in life they can go back to it and cultivate it or something. But if you find that you take yourself there, and then you also find that after that because I think after the 10 days you leave that place knowing that I'm just at the beginning of a 20,000 step. I don't know. I just took the first
it's
step.
It's a journey.
In yes. And so you also have to ask yourself, will I stay the course?
Yeah.
And one has to be prepared to have some sort of challenging time for a period, because perhaps when you come back to life, you meet real life, as you're trying to apply what you've understood during your course in real life, there will be that new dynamic that might challenge your understanding of both your course and what real life is. And then maybe you have to go back to clarify these new issues that have arisen. And it's this movement, you keep going. That's how you progress.
So if I can just add to that, what I've heard is it's about 10% of attendants who actually come back.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, and actually at the end of the course,
you should have let me guess.
The teacher says, he says, okay, at the beginning and at the end, you're committing for these 10 days to give this technique a fair try. Give it a fair trial. After the 10 days, if you feel it works for you, take it up. If you feel it's not for you, put it aside, go on in the life, or take something else. Wow. So there is no push. No, you must. Yeah. And even there is no outreach per se.
Yeah.
Go out and recruit people. And one of the things that made me, because also I'm a skeptical kind of person. But when I saw, when you come, the boarding and the food, everything is provided for free. I was like, okay. No one is asking for a penny or anything. And then after the 10 days, if you feel that you have benefited somehow and you feel that you want to contribute to somebody else to benefit the same way you have benefited, you can give something. So the intention is very important. Yes, I've gotten something good, let somebody else get something good. And that's how even the meditation tradition gets volunteers. People who've experienced it, decided, I want to integrate this into my life. And every now and then I'll be going back when there's a course. I help out in one or two ways. Yeah. So seeing that, and that no one is paid. The assistant teachers, everyone volunteer basis. So any money that is collected runs the course, buys food, never goes into anyone's pockets.
Really?
So I'm like, okay, that is an encouraging thing. I'm also, it touches.
Well, now it sounds like a cult. Now it sounds like a cult. Right?
Yeah, it touches on that altruistic bit.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So,
well, I think your time is of the essence now, but for the podcast. But Amwayi, I think this is really eye-opening, and I think for anyone who's listening, this is maybe an option for mental health that probably wouldn't, never cross the consciousness of possibilities. You think of it as.
Can I just add on to that bit of mental health?
Yes.
So internationally, many of the teachers and assistant teachers are actually psychiatrists and psychologists.
Yeah.
And one of the things they recommend, if you've seen a professional and they've recommended a certain regime, stick to that regime and add the technique. Don't break from your prescribed regimen.
Yeah. It seems like a complementary sort of practice that would work well, but at the same time, it's not even on the list of options. That if you told me what are 10 things you could do for mental health, I wouldn't have thought of this kind of practice. You know, I don't know if it's common knowledge at all. I mean, it is for Charles.
So I think.
I mean, have you guys ever heard of this before? Anybody? You know? Yeah, but it does. But I don't know. It sounds really functional. It sounds like a really.
Yeah, because what I think has been happening is there is a certain. This is me just these are my own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
There is a level of awareness about our, I think, mental makeup that more and more people are beginning to access, which I think previously we were very hung up on bread and butter, more, but now our needs, we're beginning to see that these other needs need to be met as well for us to be fully functional humans. And we're sort of, to my mind, lucky to be in a space where, again, the more you explore, the more you find, there is actually this material and these possibilities. So what I foresee is there will probably be more and more people engaging with these sort of things as they bump up against the limits of what life is currently offer, and they get into all this crisis and they're trying to look around to find answers. This might become like a thing that they actually consider. So you might see an uptick in the interest.
For sure.
Yeah. So actually, just to follow up on that, so as part of the daily practice, there's an app on the phone to help you with your daily meditation practice, and it has a tracker for how many people. So if I turn my phone on now, we'll see how many people are meditating globally.
How many people's knees hurt right now?
Well, not necessarily hurting, but yes. Or rather, how many people have actually turned on their phones and are on the app, and they're also meditating. And I remember the early days when I started using the app, it would be 180, 190, low 200s. Slowly it went up to 300s, 400s. Now when I turn it on, I usually see 600, 700.
Wow.
So that shows that there's an increase. And now these are the people who are meditating daily. And if you say that is less than 10%,
sure,
you can imagine how many more are slowly taking up there. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think as Charles has mentioned, and I think even the government has become cognizant of mental health crisis, and it has started initiatives, and actually mental health services are now coverable under NHIF and are supposed to be provided in government facilities. So as more people look for ways to be more balanced, Vipassana is not the only one. People are signing up to very many things. So
so thank you. I think it would be a good point to close this very, very interesting conversation.
Yes, thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Amwayi, I really appreciate you
awesome.
coming on. It's really interesting to hear all this, and it's insightful, and hopefully it's helpful to our listeners, those of you who are looking for more information about mental health. Once again, I mean, Charles and I are not professionals, but we do like to sort of spread the light and or let the light shine on different aspects of mental health. And I think this is a real practical and tangible practice that anybody could, I guess it's really accessible to anyone.
Yes.
And where would one find out more about this particular practice?
So there's the global website, which is dhamma.org. That is DHAMMA.org.
Okay.
So if you go there, regardless of where you're located, whether it's in Kenya, the Americas, Europe, Asia, Australia, courses are being run across the globe. So you can sign up for a course. You'll get all the information there.
Okay. Now, say it one more time.
Dhamma. So Dhamma is spelled DHAMMA.org.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
in Kenya, I think we probably the next courses are scheduled, I think, for August.
For
is
August,
it?
yes.
There'll be some courses in August, and
then also
then I think in December.
Yes.
So if you want to see,
I'm busy.
Not you, the audience.
Darren is out. Yeah,
December, you're bound to be some holiday destination.
So thank you so much. This was a good conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed
it. I believe there are people out there who will be moved, or at least might just take an interest, and hopefully it will be useful to them. Darren.
All right. Well, thanks once again for listening to Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. And it's been a pleasure to host Amwayi Tsuma, and as well as my co-host, Charles Adede. My name is Darren Collins, and once again, you can look at meiammental.me for more information. And make sure, we're not asking for any money here, so your likes and follows and shares are currency for us. And so go ahead and share the information with other people who you might also find this interesting, and thank you for being interested in the stuff we have to talk about. Once again, it's Darren Collins with Me, I Am Mental.
Bye-bye. See you around.
Bye.
Ciao.